Another popular form of photography that you'll see, especially on Flickr, is HDR photography. And what HDR stands for is high dynamic range. And what that literally means is, on a camera like this or a DSLR, essentially what you're going to do is you're going to take multiple exposures, let's just say 3 for example, one that's underexposed, 1 stop, 2 stops, a half a stop, one that's right on the money, and one that's overexposed by 1 stop, 2 stops, a half a stop, whatever. And then you use a program. There's various programs out there that can do this, and Photoshop is another way to do it. You basically mash those exposures together, and it fills in the full tonal range of your image, giving you a sort of surreal looking photograph with this sort of surreal looking light. People really like it because it gives a really interesting look. It gives a lot of really great detail. And the more exposures you combine together, the more tonal range you're going to get in the overall image. So a really practical use for HDR photography is when you have a scene where, let's say it's a landscape with a pond and a sky with clouds and trees, where the pond and the trees and the sky are all different exposures, and you want to bring them all in so it looks good and so that everything looks as beautiful as possible. What you could do is make 3 different exposures, one for the pond to get the reflections, one for the trees to get the shadows, and one for the sky to bring that in, and then combine them all together either by hand or using an HDR program, and it'll give a really nice effect. And again, it might look a little bit surreal because it's not true to real life, but it's going to look really beautiful, and it's a really great way to accomplish that look. A lot of pocket cameras or point-and-shoot cameras, and even some DSLRs even have HDR mode that will physically shoot 3 images when you push down the shutter and mash them together for you. The iPhone also has an HDR mode that does the same thing. It will mash together 3 different exposures to give you greater tonal range. I'm not a huge fan of HDR myself because I think it gives it a little bit of a cheap look, but when done tastefully, it can be really, really effective. If you're planning on doing one on your own and mashing it together, in post-production, not in the camera, it's important to remember to keep the camera absolutely steady, whether it be balanced on a tripod, on a ledge, anything, because if that camera moves at all, when you're trying to line up the various exposures, it's going to look really wonky and give a really just nasty effect. And those are just the basics of HDR photography.